let's get into the question of the day. Our question of the day comes from Reddit about gender roles and a question that this poster had about the homily given by a priest. Now, this was from a few years ago, but I think it fits so beautifully in our conversation today. So let's go ahead and get into the question. Last Sunday, the reading was a fragment of The Wife of Noble Character from Proverbs. For those of you that are not aware, that's Proverbs 31, followed by a homily that left me a bit baffled. I don't intend to complain about the priest because I'm sure he said everything in good faith without any malice, but I do have a problem with some things he said, and I hope someone could offer me an explanation so that I could understand. Throughout the homily, the priest very strongly emphasized that it's a woman's duty to serve her husband and take care of all his needs. He said that women are the emotional ones and therefore they are supposed to raise the children, and men are unable to take care of their children that well because they are the intelligent ones. Generally, he only talked about women in the context of marriage, children, and taking care of the household. He didn't say that women were worse than men, of course, but he unintentionally implied that women were inferior to men. At least this is the impression I got. I wouldn't even mind being a stay-at-home mom, but I think that it as a sole purpose of my existence is a bit degrading. I see marriage as a partnership based on love. And when a wife takes care of her husband, it's because she loves him, not because it's her duty. And if the husband loves his wife, he'll too take care of her and the children. I know single fathers who raise children on their own and are doing a great job, and it would be hurtful to them to say that they are not good at it because they are not women. I'm posting this question on Reddit because whenever I ask someone for explanation, they either said, if the priest said so, then it must be true. Stop thinking about this. Or this couldn't have been what the priest really meant or said. You must have misunderstood everything. Which would be fine if they explained what the priest meant according to them, but they just said I was wrong and that was it. So I'm hoping that by posting here that I get an answer. This is a hot button topic, and that's why I wanted to pick it for our second segment in the podcast, because so many women, I think, in today's culture get this wrong. And let's be honest here, there are some men who get this wrong too. Our culture today, to me, is so disturbing because there is this obsession right now with this talk about submission and men demanding women to submit to them, right? And while I understand this and I agree, the thing is that women are not supposed to be submitting to every man on the planet. Honey, the Bible says to submit to your husband. And that's a whole thing to unpack here, okay, that we're not going to do necessarily on this talk. We'll do this on another talk. But the Bible clearly says about submission to one's husband, and that a man's role is to provide for his family, right? And the two working together in these distinct roles is what builds a strong family, a strong community, a strong nation, a strong world rooted in faith. The problem with today's conversation, it's kind of like we had talked about this in the whole Lila Rose conversation with when she was on the Whatever podcast. Go ahead and make sure you listen to that one next after this. But the problem with this conversation is when you take God out of the picture, you don't have that full understanding of what submission means and what the role of men and women are. And I think that because we are not raised as women, particularly in the culture today, to look at ourselves as being homemakers or caretakers or being wives or being mothers, we're being taught to put things off till years and years later. Next thing you look up, you blink, and you're running out of time. That's what society promotes. It does not promote us being domestic figures or being traditional in that sense with traditional gender ideology. But the church does. Now, here's the thing. When today's women hears this, when we hear the context of this within the faith, their heads start to explode. It's like, I don't want to do that. I am not submitting. I'm not being domestic. Just like this woman kind of is pushing back against the rhetoric because society has told us that this is abusive, that we have no voice, that we are only important if we have education and degrees and high-powered jobs, that nothing else matters. That is what we're taught, but that's not what God necessarily has intended for us. To understand and unpack this, you have to understand and know Ephesians chapter 5, verses 5 to 25. It is there. It lays it out so beautifully. The role of men and women in marriage. the main purpose is not just to love each other, but it's to get each other to heaven. And if you lead in your relationship like that, it all starts to make sense because you want to get each other to heaven. You want to get your children to heaven. So it's your role as a woman, and our bodies, our nature, our just everything about us has that nurturing quality. And it's useful. And as a woman, to ignore that, I think it's a denigration of faith and the way that God made us. Now, here's the reality. Not every woman's going to be a mother. Not every woman's going to be a wife. Some of us are staring down the barrel of being single for the rest of our lives. If that is God's will, no matter how painful that might be, that's going to be a reality for so many people because marriage rates are on the decline across the world. So what do? There are other ways to serve, to put yourself forth, to be of usefulness to other people. Usefulness in a good sense, usefulness in using your feminine qualities that the Lord has given you to nurture your community, to nurture your family, to nurture the people around you, to nurture the things that you care about. So putting that into perspective, it's still being done according to His will. So when you take away the fact that mothering isn't just about children, it kind of makes you see how even in this world today, as she's in waiting as a single woman, how can you foster that and make it feel more in balance with your life? The other thing we have to remember is that there's another side of the coin to this, which is the men. Any man who you both choose to marry, right, each other, it has to be mutual agreement here. He should be a man of God that understands what this means in full context, that he should be a man, get this, at the same time that you are dedicating your life to your legacy together with your children that you have together, with the home and everything that encompasses that, you know what he's required to do? To lay down his life. He is required to die for you, to die for your children, to die to his ego, to serve his family, and to serve the Lord fully. So it's really not that imbalanced because you are laying down your womb, you are laying down your trust, you are laying down your vulnerability and everything to serve the purpose that you both have, which is to get to heaven together. So it's deeper than this thing. Like, we reduce it to housework. We reduce it to raising children. We reduce it to this thing that's so much greater than the conversation we're having. And at the same time that you're laying all that down, and for some women, if you choose, or if your circumstances financially may have you staying at home because that's great, but some of you might have to go to work. You still have to uphold your duties as women. But for men too, the same thing applies. The same thing applies. Laying down your life, you're both laying down your life to each other with the purpose of getting higher. I really implore women today to get into Ephesians, not just women, because I talk to women. I'm a woman. I talk to other women. That's, natural. But the men too. You need to break down Ephesians, because the other thing that's never talked about in the submission thing is the mutual submission. That submission isn't just this like one-way street. Submission is about mutually submitting to each other as you submit to the Lord. It's deep. It is really deep, and it's a beautiful thing. It does not have to be something that makes you feel less than as a woman. And even if you're a woman who has to work outside of the home, it doesn't make you less of a woman if that's what your economic circumstances require. That's where looking at how you can possibly, in today's world, how can you split the housework to make it a little bit easier? If you're both out there working, how can you make life easier for you so you can take care of the children and do what you have to do? Yes, take care of your husband's needs as much as he's taking care of your needs as well. There's got to be communication. Love is not a reason to marry someone. Sometimes we love people who are horrible for us, that we should not be in sacramental marriages with. People love the wrong person. People let emotion lead them and not faith, not discernment. So love is a dangerous thing to base marriage on alone. Of course, you want to love your spouse or your future spouse, right? But looking at things from a perspective of, Can the two of us get each other to heaven? Do we worship the same God? Do we believe the same things? Do we have the same values and foundation? That is what that homily was probably about, and what you should take home from that conversation. What are your thoughts? Go ahead and post them below. If you like this clip, you'll love the full conversation even more. Watch that video right here or click the link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below.